The launch of the Yars intercontinental missile failed in Russia. No traces of the launch were recorded, writes Defense Express. It is noted that on the night of May 19, Russia planned to carry out a training and combat launch of the Rs-24 Yars intercontinental ballistic missile. However, the launch never took place. The Russian Federation was unable to launch Yars. Everything indicates that the launch simply did not take place, the publication writes. According to the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, the launch area was atypical, in the Sverdlovsk region, near the settlement of Svobodny, where the 433rd Regiment of the 42nd Division of the 31st Army of the Strategic Missile Forces is stationed. Given the proximity to the city of Nizhny Tagil, any launch should have been captured on camera by local residents. However, not a single photo or video evidence has appeared. There are also no records from distant regions. A missile aimed at the Kara test site in Kamchatka could have been observed over a large area, from Khanty-Mansiisk to Magadan. But even from there no visual recordings were received. The reasons for the cancellation of the launch are still unknown. Experts do not rule out technical problems or the Kremlin's reluctance to show weakness in the area of nuclear deterrence on the eve of important negotiations between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Let us recall that in 2023, the Russian Federation failed to successfully launch Yars missiles twice. The missiles went off course. It is possible that this time an abnormal situation occurred at the launch stage. In addition, at the end of September 2024, an Rs-28 Sarmat missile exploded in a launch silo at the Plesetsk Cosmodrome, which further reinforces doubts about the reliability of Russian strategic weapons.
In the Russian city of Volgodonsk, Rostov region, residents rebelled because local authorities were not caring for military burial sites. They recorded an angry video in which they acknowledged the huge losses in the war against Ukraine. Veterans of the so-called SVO accused the city administration of a disregard for the dead. They started bringing the guys in en masse. The alley could no longer accommodate the Russian soldiers liquidated in Ukraine. In 2024, it had to be extended. This alley of ours grew before our eyes. The city administration didn't even pick at it with a fork. When the guys go to the SVO, they are told that they will not be forgotten, that for the motherland. And those who returned as 200th lie here knee-deep in grass, and no one needs it. It makes your hair stand on end, said residents of Volgodonsk. According to the Institute for the Study of War, over the past 16 months, Moscow has occupied about 4.7 thousand square kilometers of Ukrainian territory. This is less than 1% of all of Ukraine, and for this, Russia has lost about 400,000 soldiers killed and wounded. These are colossal losses. It is difficult to obtain concrete information about Russian casualties which comprise deaths and injuries. Moscow has an incentive to minimize its losses and rarely discloses any information. Western casualty estimates usually lump together deaths with injuries. Military experts say that that category is too broad to fully explain the state of the war. Lightly wounded soldiers can quickly recover, for example. What determines a military's true ability to fight are its irreplaceable, irrecoverable or permanent losses. Soldiers who are dead or so seriously injured that they will never see battle again. Some independent Russian journalists and researchers have found innovative ways to count Russia's dead and wounded, digging up information from diverse sources like obituaries, cemeteries, disability payments and notary databases. Their calculations begin to show a more accurate toll of the war, shedding light on Russia's ability to continue the fight. They also suggest that Russia has lost more soldiers in this war than any industrialized nation has in a conflict since World War II. The military intelligence agencies of Ukraine and many NATO nations produce their own estimates of Russian casualties. These agencies do not disclose their methods. The numbers they make public usually represent the top range of their internal estimates and include light injuries, according to officials and military analysts familiar with the calculations. As reported, Russian President Vladimir Putin appointed Andrei Mordvichev as commander of the Russian army's ground forces. This is the second promotion for the comparatively young military leader since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In February 2023, Mordvichev replaced Alexander Lapin, the commander of the Central Military District, who had been criticized by Yevgeny Prigozhin, Ramzan Kadyrov, and Russian pro-war bloggers. 7 months later, in September 2023, Mordvichev was awarded the rank of Colonel General. The main milestones of his rapid career in the war are considered to be the capture of Mariupol and the perfection of the meat assault tactics, as a result of which the Russian military was able to occupy Avdiivka in the Donetsk region in February 2024. For this, Putin personally praised Mordvichev, later signing a decree awarding the general the Hero of Russia Star, as well as the successes of the Russian army in the Pokrovsk direction. At the same time, Mordvichev is considered no stranger to new trends in the military, such as the use of drones on the battlefield. As Commander-in-Chief of the ground forces, he becomes a more likely potential successor to Gerasimov, either as Chief of the General Staff or as Commander of the war in Ukraine. In addition, he has a better understanding of the course of the war and new technological developments than his predecessor, wrote Rob Lee, a research fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute on the social network X. Among other contenders, Mordvichev has the most combat command experience and growing influence, wrote Dara Masikot, a senior fellow in the Russia and Eurasia program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, shortly before the rumors about his appointment were officially confirmed. Mordvichev personally present at the surrender of the defenders of Mariupol, as follows from the GVMU database. Immediately after being discharged from the hospital, he went for rehabilitation to the annexed Crimea, to the Pirogov Sanatorium in the resort town of Saki. It was in connection with the events in Mariupol and the siege of Azovstal that Mordvichev was suspected of committing war crimes in Ukraine. On his instructions, as reported by the Ukrainian prosecutor's office, Russian troops destroyed civilian and critical infrastructure and killed civilians. In addition, as prosecutors claimed, Mordvichev participated in a meeting with pro-Russian militants and the head of Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov, at which a plan was approved for the final capture of Mariupol and the storming of Azovstal, where Ukrainian soldiers and civilians remained in partially destroyed bomb shelters. This was also stated in a report by the human rights organization Human Rights Watch. Russian pro-war channels speak negatively of Mordvichev. His appointment is seen as a sign that Russia will continue the war. This has increased the discontent of those who oppose the war. Now in Russia, many members of the elite and society are against the war due to the increasing casualties.